I'm Senator Rand Paul. Every student deserves the opportunity to succeed, but today, fewer than half of Kentucky students are proficient in math and reading by the 8th grade. That's unacceptable. In states that allow school choice, public school scores in math, reading, and science have all increased. Competition works. Join me in supporting Amendment 2 and give all Kentucky students a chance to succeed.
Protect Freedom PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Listening to WIOK 107.5 FM on the radio dial. Tri-State Gospel. Post Office Box 50, Falmouth, Kentucky, 41040 zip code. Yes, folks, Gil and Janet Hammond, 32 years ago, they turned this station into a Christian radio station, and brother, I've been so thrilled for 32 years, as well as thousands of other people. Listening to gospel music and great sermons. Adrian Rogers, David Jeremiah, Michael Youssef, Dr. Dobson, and of course Gil Hammond, one of the greatest in the Kentucky Commonwealth of Kentucky. Carl Martin down in Barry, Kentucky too, every Sunday morning. And Ann Graham Lott.
107.5 Tri-State Gospel, WIOK, Falmouth, Cincinnati. 570 Southern Kentucky Gospel, WIDS, Russell Springs, Jamestown.
See what the news is on this day before election.
John Scott. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump both speeding toward the finish line ahead of Election Day. White House correspondent Greg Clugston reports from his Blue Wall States tour.
In the final hours of this 2024 campaign, both presidential candidates are making their final stump speeches as they visit toss-up battleground states. Harris is spending all day here in Pennsylvania, from Pittsburgh in the west to Philadelphia in the east. Trump has 4 rallies in 3 states on his schedule. Before closing out in Michigan, he'll stop twice in Pennsylvania, including here in the Pittsburgh area. On the Blue Wall States tour, Greg Clugston, Allegheny County, Pennsylvania.
Also at SRNnews.com, North Carolina setting a new record for early voting. Correspondent Bob Agnew has more.
The State Board of Elections says nearly 4.5 million North Carolinians cast their ballots early this year, including 4.2 million who did so at in-person voting sites. That far exceeds the previous state record of 3.6 million in 2020. Many feared that after Hurricane Helene caused widespread damage in the western part of the state, voting might be impacted. Instead, state officials say Turnout in the 25 counties hardest hit by the storm was 58.9%, about 2% higher than the statewide average. Bob Iger reporting.
With inflation continuing to cool, the Fed is set to cut interest rates for a second time this year. On Thursday, the Fed's policymakers are on track to cut their benchmark rate by a quarter point to about 4.6%, after having implemented a full half-point reduction in September. A new tropical storm expected to form in the Caribbean and will bring heavy rain to Jamaica and the Cayman Islands, and later to the southeast U.S. The Dow dropping 215 points, the Nasdaq 2 points in the red. This is SRN News.
Problems have been building for the past 50 years, and they're not going away overnight, which is why we must prepare now for a financial collapse.
You know, it's always great to come up here to the courthouse and sing a little song and say a little prayer for our country and for all the people that need to come out and vote today. I encourage everybody to come out and vote for the folks of your choice, but study them. We need to have people in office that believe in godly principles and the rights that we were given in this country by God. So Lord, watch over the voters and encourage everybody to go vote tomorrow, November the 5th. And I pray that we will have some godly principled people elected, and hope that we can get the country back on the right track, because we've got to do something about our borders. We got to do something to keep judges in the positions of being honest and forthright and doing the right jobs at all levels. And then we've got to have our education system to where it is working for all the citizens with parental involvement. And we need to teach lessons. We need to go back and insert the 10 Commandments on the walls of every school room. And we need to teach the Bible and literature as history. You know something? One of my favorite teachers was Leatis Beach, who taught at Dixie Heights High School, and he taught literature there. And he taught the Bible there as literature. Back when he taught school for 30-some years, was inducted into the Dixie Heights Hall of Fame. And I came down and sang for him. Leatis Beach, my cousin, the cousin and brother of Darius Beach, who's now in heaven, the good Lord. And so watch over all of us, Lord, and protect us, and be there for people's minds, and realize that the country is lost if we lose our ability to be with godly principles. And so let me say our prayer today. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Lord, watch over all the sick and afflicted. Watch over those with mental illness, with drug addiction, with alcohol addiction, and even chain smoking, Lord. It can all be harmful to the body. And overeating, myself included. Help us all, Lord, to do right in our health and make wise decisions. And go to church. Revival. We need revival all across the world. We need revival in America. Revive the churches and restore the godly principles in reading the scriptures in our churches. Join Baptist and Catholic and Jewish, Protestant, whatever churches. Go to church and thank God that we have a country with freedoms, and stand up for freedoms and rights. Red, yellow, brown, black, or white, we're all precious in Jesus' sight. All of us are precious in Jesus' sight. And I thank you, Lord. I'd rather have Jesus than silver or gold. I'd rather be his than have riches untold. I'd rather have Jesus than houses or lands. I'd rather be led by his nail-pierced hands than to be the king of a vast domain and be held in sin's dread sway. I'd rather have Jesus than anything this world affords today. Oh, the sun shines bright on my old Kentucky home. 'Tis summer, the children at play. The corn top's ripe, and the meadows are in bloom, and the birds make music all the day. Weep no more, my ladies, oh, weep no more today. We will sing one song for my old Kentucky home, for my old Kentucky home, far away. Oh, the children roll on the little cabin floor, all merry, all happy and bright. By and by hard times comes a knocking at the door, then my old Kentucky home says good night. Weep no more, my ladies, oh, weep no more today. We will sing one song for my old Kentucky home, for my old Kentucky home, far away. I have one further song for you today. I sing it today for my wife, Miss June Diamond Stevenson. The smartest move I ever made. And God made it in 1985, July the 28th, when he told her, there goes your husband out the door. Took me 4 years to convince her God was right. But on March the 31st, 1989, we married each other at 127 Seville Court, Fort Mitchell. Later built that little cottage there at 213 Beechwood Road. And then later out at 2994 Moffett Road, our final home that we built on the grounds that I used to cut tobacco on and corn and raise a garden there on Martin and Moffett Roads. Yes, I remember all those days and times and those beautiful homes and the beautiful little cottage that we live in now that we rent with the Lord's help and the help of Gil and Jan Hammond from the WIOK radio station. God bless them all. And God bless those who help us through life. At 81, we need help. And we ask you for it, and we thank you for it. And this little song, I say to all the voters who go out and vote with godly principles today, and go to church on Sunday, Wednesday, Sunday night. Go to church and have a revival for yourself and your own soul. It's a great feeling. Watch over Miss June and her health and my health and all of her brothers and sisters and their health, and my children and grandchildren. Watch over them. all three of my daughters, Holly, Pamela, Michelle, and their children and their husbands, Arch, Jeff, yes, and Bill, and Bill, particularly with the cancer that he's battled, him and Holly. Watch over all of them and their children, and watch over all the other children in the world and those people who are going to vote today. And watch over all of our ministers and our priests and our rabbis, wherever they are today, spreading the word for the Lord. And watch over all the candidates, regardless of party. And vote your choice. You know, I have my choices. Godly principles means an awful lot to me for the country. So I'm voting for godly principles with the people that I'm voting for. You vote for who you wish to, and I'll pray for you and you pray for me. And the song goes like this as I thank all of the people who go vote. You are so beautiful to me. You are so beautiful to me. Can't you see? You're everything I hope for. You're everything I need. You are so beautiful to God. And you are beautiful to God when you go vote for godly principles, love for everybody, and prayers for everybody, faith for everybody. Red, yellow, brown, black, or white, we're all precious in Jesus' sight. We're all precious in Jesus' sight. God bless you today. Go out and vote tomorrow, April the 5th. Remember to pray tonight at 6 o'clock all across the country, and at 7 o'clock right here in northern Kentucky and Commonwealth of Kentucky. Pray for everybody to vote tomorrow for godly principles. God bless you all. Dr. John Stevenson here, Former Superintendent of Education, Commonwealth of Kentucky. Travels with Dr. John Stevenson on YouTube and Facebook. www.begottensson.com, www.godsbiz.com, www.jstevenson.com. Email address small j small s 750-0000 at email.com. Phone number 859-750-0000. God bless you all, and may you have a great voting day. All the elected officials that are running, thank you for your efforts. You work hard, and it won't be easy to lose, and it won't be easy to win, because you're going to be working for a country that needs lots of things done to protect us, our citizens, our borders, our lives, our health care, all of it. It's all needed by all the elected officials, whether it's city, county, state, or federal. And thank you for all of you who serve. In Jesus' name we do ask it. Amen.
Prophets of Yahweh, the great King, the creator of all life, they were persecuted. Now you will be persecuted because of me. He's clearly been doing all this teaching that he's God incarnate. He's the Son of God. He's the Messiah. Old Testament passages have predicted for hundreds and hundreds of years an anointed one. That the word Christ means. An anointed one. A king is going to come and set up God's kingdom, and the world is not like God wants it, but this new king is going to usher in God's way, God's values, so that people treat one another and they honor God in ways that are best for them and give honor and glory to him. And he's just given us the 8 characteristics of that kind of person. As I prayed and as I just studied this, he's going to take each one of these Beatitudes and he's going to show this group of people what it looks like in their world, in their context of what it means to be poor in spirit, what it means to mourn and why, what it means to be meek, what it means to hunger and thirst for righteousness. And he's going to implant it in their experience in a way that when he gets done, all the lights are going to come on and they're going to go, oh, this is the kind of follower. This is the agenda. This is what it means to follow this king. And so that's how I'm going to teach it.
You're listening to Living on the Edge with Chip Ingram, and he'll be back to continue our series, What the World Needs Now, in just a minute. But let me quickly tell you, we are more than a broadcast ministry. We're passionate about supporting pastors globally, developing helpful resources, and sharing the gospel with this next generation. So if you'd like to...
I hope you enjoy listening to WIOK 107.5 FM on the radio dial. As we go by the old Kenton County Courthouse here. And the memorial flag.
Can you get out of your sort of, I've been a Christian forever, or I go to church, or I grew up in the 20th or 21st century, and just realize, imagine a 30-year-old teacher comes on the scene, he's doing these miracles, your brother was paralyzed, now you've seen 5,000. Contract, poor spirit, where we be open to hear what you want to change in us before we go look into what needs to change in others. In Christ's name, amen.
It and I will fix it and fast. America will be bigger, better, bolder, richer, safer, and stronger than ever before. This election is a choice between whether we will have 4 more years of gross incompetence and failure. That's what it was, 4 years of gross. Nothing good happened. What good happened? They cheated in their numbers. You saw last week they cheated on all their economic. We're in like a depression territory. I'll give you a little advance notice, 12,000 jobs. When did you hear that? That's like for Walmart. That's not for us. That's not for a country. It's 250, 300, 400, 100. 12,000, we lost hundreds of thousands of manufacturing jobs over the last month. Think of that. It's going to be that, or whether we will begin the 4 greatest years in the history of our country. We're going to make these unbelievable years, and we're starting from a negative. You know, we're starting from like about 15 yards off the field. We're not starting at the 20, we're starting from 15 yards off the field. And speaking of football, maybe we can get the NFL to drop that ridiculous kickoff stick. What the hell are they? What is that? I watched a game the other day. I said, what the hell happened? They just kicked off and nobody moved. Oh, well. That's up to them. This will be the golden age of America. Tomorrow, it's a beautiful term, isn't it? I was saying before, I was just proofing and reading and studying and all that stuff, and what a beautiful term, the golden age. We're going to be in the golden age. Won't take long. So tomorrow you have to stand up and tell Kamala that you've had enough. You're not going to take it anymore. You're the most incompetent vice president we've ever had. And Joe Biden was the worst president in the history of our country. Kamala, you're fired. Get the hell out of here. You're fired. Thank you. With your vote, we're going to win Pennsylvania, and we're going to defeat Kamala and those radical left, what they're doing to our country. Crazy Nancy Pelosi, what's about her? She has Visa stock, a big position. You know, she started off with nothing, now she's worth $200 billion. How did that happen? So she has Visa stock, and she sells her stock. The day before, it was announced that Visa's under major federal investigation. I don't know. I wonder, do you think she had any insider information? I don't know. It's disgrace. Honestly, she's a disgrace. They ought to throw her the hell out of Congress. We are going to make America great again, and it's going to be fast. We're going to do it fast. We'll fast track it. Over the past 4 years, Kamala has orchestrated the most egregious betrayal that any leader in American history has ever inflicted upon our people. She's violated her oath of office. She's eradicated our sovereign border and unleashed an army of gangs and criminal migrants from prisons and jails, insane asylums and mental institutions, from all around the world, from Venezuela and the Congo in Africa, stealing countless American lives. And these are rough customers that are coming, much rougher than almost anybody in this room, other than the other night I had the Penn State national champion wrestling team. Think of this. They have a great coach. They've won exactly 11 out of the last 13 national championships. And I looked at these guys, they came up, I brought them up. And we were at Penn State when we did a little bit of a rally. It was a little rally that we could have sold the place out about 15 times. But we brought them up. I heard they were here, and I brought them up. And they had more muscle than I ever saw in a human being. And I looked at them and I said, you know, fellas, you may be the only ones in this room, in this country, that could take the migrants in a fight. You may be the only ones. Then I said, but they fight dirty. They use knives and guns, and they do, and they are vicious and they're tough. And we're going to get them the hell out. We have to. Our country's being destroyed. Our country is being destroyed here today. There's an incredible woman who I got to know, actually, over this tragedy, Patty Morin, whose heartbreaking story is a tragic warning of what will come to every city in America. It's coming to every city. It's already there. I mean, they won't even talk about it, but it's coming. It's only going to get worse. And by the way, 21 million people she allowed in. Open borders. We have no idea who they are, and many of them are bad. If she ever won, I hate to even mention that concept, she's incompetent. If she ever won, she would have open borders the following day after the election, and you wouldn't have 21 million people, which is a record.
President Trump in Reading, Pennsylvania. We saw a rally earlier today, and there will be 2 more over the course of this evening. He will wrap it up in Grand Rapids, which is a tradition for him. This is the 3rd time that his last stop will be in Kent County, an extremely important county in the state of Michigan for whoever will win this election. So he is running through the tape, as we say, that both candidates are. We're going to be watching all of it throughout the course of the day here. And coming up here on the story, May Musk, mom to Elon Musk, on her decision to vote Republican this election and what she thinks about women in this vote. Next.
And Doug.
We're afraid. Everyone, couple of bicycles and hundreds of car insurance. Among voters who are still on the fence, she wrote this in the Wall Street Journal. For those of us clear-eyed enough to see Mr. Trump's flaws and honest enough to acknowledge them, the question is whether we're better off with his policies or his opponents on taxes, spending, inflation, immigration, energy, and national security. The candidates are miles apart. And Mr. Trump, she writes, is clearly the better choice. So let's bring in a woman who has been speaking out about politics in this country of late, and her son Elon is very involved in the Trump race. Let's bring in May Musk. She's the author of this wonderful new book called A Woman Makes a Plan. I love that title. Every woman needs a plan. She's a doctor of dietetics, and she joins me now. May, Lovely to have you. Thank you so much for joining us today. You know, I want to ask you a couple of things about this race. One of them is all these disputes that have been going on. You know, we see the election disputes about people who are non-citizens who are trying to vote, and then one of them is a case that involves your son with regard to these $1 million giveaways. How do you see that case against him? Do you think it's politically motivated, or what's your take on it as his mother?
You mean the gift that he gives when they come, if they sign the First and Second Amendment? Well, they could be Republicans or Democrats. It's nothing to, you know, it's not a Republican meeting. And he just wants to give some happiness to people and encourage them to follow the First and Second Amendment.
But the fact that it's been dragged into the realm of the courts now.
Yeah, but that's normal. They go after Elon for every hiccup. He gets a court order. So this is pretty much Democratic judges or court orders. It's the Democrats are really after him, and most of them, or most of the judges are Democrats.
You know, there's been a lot of discussion that the Trump campaign has dug deep into sort of gaining votes among younger men and the bro group, which I think Elon is so popular with on social media and everywhere else. But I just watched, I thought it was interesting, in the Trump rally that we just watched, it was all women they had behind him, and they were holding posters that said "Women for Trump." How do you see the gender gap in this election?
Well, you know, I'm not an expert on this, but I think everyone should go and vote. And I have to say, when I give talks worldwide, because my book's all over the world, there's 20% of my audience is men and boys. And it's the boys that were so excited to meet Elon's mom. And so the men need to get out and vote as well.
Yeah, you know, I think there's a feeling that women are aligning with Kamala and men are aligning with Trump. You know, what do you say to women voters about, because I know you've spoken out about your own approach to this election.
Yes, you know, I do feel that there should be more presidents that are women. However, they need to be able to put a sentence together, or at least have a policy, or at least say something, you know, just something that makes sense. Otherwise, it's a complete embarrassment for us women.
Why do you think she's been so reluctant to speak more clearly about how she sees things?
I don't think she sees things. Yeah, she should represent women, and she certainly doesn't.
So in terms of your son, who is, you know, just a figure of such fascination, and the thing that I find so many interesting things about him, obviously, but is his commitment. And I remember watching Return to Space, and the rockets would go up and they would crash, and he was not discouraged.
I know.
And he just said, well, we're going to learn about this for next time. You know, what is it like for you as his mother watching him land that in the sticks?
Well, first of all, with each crash of the rockets, I was broken. Oh no. And then he'd say, all right, well, then he comes out and he says to all the SpaceX people, we'll learn from this and we'll do it next time. And then he'll say, let's go for dinner. And meanwhile, you know, Tosca and Kimmel and I, we're going, oh no. And then, of course, he just is way ahead in the space race.
Yeah, I mean, it's wonderful to see someone who embraces so much hope and dynamism and excitement about the future. And I think, you know, reading some of your book, which is so interesting, it's clear that you instilled that. You have your own strong sense of adventure. What does he say about what it's like, you know, this whole road of getting involved in U.S. politics? He's in deep.
Yes, well, he hasn't got a choice because, of course, Kamala wants to close down X, formerly Twitter, and she also, and in the democratic process, they delay everything. They delay rocket launches. They are negative and hateful and have investigations and lawsuits against, you know, SpaceX and Tesla and even Neuralink. You would think they would encourage the Neuralink to help people who are paraplegics or are going blind. No, they put so many regulations in his way, and they're very slow with approving anything. And they just want to slow him down, and you know, there's a lot of people behind them that must be paying a lot for them to stop the development in America.
Well, he's an agitator and an innovator and a fascinating person to watch, and it's so nice to meet you. And the book is called A Woman Makes a Plan, Advice for a Lifetime of Adventure and Beauty and Success, which sounds like a fabulous idea to me. So I encourage everybody to read this book as well. May, it's so nice to talk with you. Thank you for joining us. Hope to see you again soon. Thank you. So from Reading, Pennsylvania, former President Trump heads to Pittsburgh, where he will be joined by steelworkers who credit him with saving their jobs.
We gave him the hard hat. I told him he's my hero. He's the greatest president ever, and he saved the steel industry with tariffs his first time in office. And he really liked that. Shook my hand and gave me a hug. So that made my day.
Brian Pavlak, who you just heard there, part of the rank and file of the steelworkers, joins me next.
Kamala Harris wants
1957 in Clarendon, Pennsylvania, and one of President Trump's special guests tonight in Pittsburgh. He joined the former president on stage last month at a rally in southwestern Pennsylvania. Brian, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to talk with us. You know, I think one of the biggest questions here, we see your steelworkers union backing Harris, but how much do you and the other men that we'll see on stage tonight represent the rank and file of the steelworkers union in this election?
Yeah, the Democrats, our union, did endorse Harris for president, but the rank and file workers, 75% of the workers support President Trump. And that's a lot of the unions around, blue collar worker unions, even the Teamsters, that they usually endorse Democrats, they endorse the candidate. But their rank and file is mostly for President Trump.
Yeah. So you pay dues to the union, the leadership does their own thing, and then the rank and file workers are 75%, you say, of a very different mindset. So how does that play out? You know, do the workers do their own effort to try to get out the vote and try to outbalance what the leadership has done?
It's kind of hard because the international and the union, they want us to vote Democrat, they push for it. That's why I try to get the message out there. I started the Steelworkers for Trump on social media, and it took off. And I got 2K members in less than 2 months since I started it. So I'm trying to get the word out. But like I said, a lot of them are tired of the Democrats because they promised stuff like the tariffs. No Democrat president ever put tariffs on steel to help the steel workers out. When President Trump was elected in 2016, he put tariffs on, and that kind of saved the steel industry.
So tell me about, you know, that clearly is one of the main reasons, right? It's policy and the impact on your jobs. What are you seeing as you spend time in your town and at work? Pennsylvania, by all accounts, is completely tied. At least that's what the pollsters tell us. What do you think is the reality?
I think if all the blue-collar workers get out and the unions get out, and then President Trump will be elected president, because I think the majority of them will vote for President Trump.
Brian, thank you so much for your time. We love the opportunity to talk to voters and workers in Pennsylvania. Great to have you with us today, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Interview.
Thank you. All right, so that's the story for the day before the United States elections, Monday, November 4th, and this story will go on for hours and hours over the course of the next several days. We also have a new episode of The Untold Story. Chief political analyst Brit Hume shares his outlook for Election Day. Brit and I had a fascinating conversation earlier today. Lots of wisdom packed into our time together, so it drops at 5 o'clock. Download that, listen to it on FoxNewsPodcast.com, and I will see you back here tomorrow at 3, and then our live election coverage all night long tomorrow night.
People who are African American or Asian, it's about common sense.
Great man, Mike Pompeo.
And there's something about Pennsylvania that you've had pollsters and different kind of experts in the field talk about. It can be very representative as the country as a whole, as America looks like. That's what Pennsylvania looks largely like, more populated places on the sides of it, more red areas in the middle. Looking at where the two candidates are today, they're crisscrossing. You have former President Trump running right now. He's going to be in Pittsburgh later. Harris in Pittsburgh, Scranton, Reading, or Allentown in Philadelphia. So, I mean, this state is completely covered, but they're wanting to really reach these critical swing districts. You have Erie County up in the north, and then Bucks County in the more southeast area of Pennsylvania. And these are counties that bring in a ton of volume. You have the Collard counties down by Philadelphia. That helped propel President Biden over the edge in 2020, but we've seen some wavering there. So former President Trump is hoping that all the time he has spent here in this state will help push him to where he needs to be, Neil.
All right, it's the place to be, I guess, Alexandria. Doesn't Jackie Heinrich know it in Philadelphia right now as Kamala Harris gets ready to literally park herself in the state pretty much for the rest of the evening. What's the latest there, Jackie?
Well, Neil, we noticed yesterday in Michigan that the vice president never mentioned Trump by name even once. And today, a senior campaign official confirmed that in fact, is their new strategy. They call it closing fully positive. Here she was in Scranton earlier today.
As he pointed out, there's a huge difference between me and the other guy. Please last, this whole era of this other guy. What it's done with all that talk that's been about trying to have us point fingers at each other and divide each other, it makes people feel alone.
Harris, though, has framed much of her campaign around a contrast with Trump, leaning heavily into that instead of getting into the guts of her policy pitches. So she's having a bit of a hard time ditching the formula entirely. One thing we are not getting, though, from this campaign is any hard data on early voting from the battleground states, and this might be why.
The early vote numbers are a little scary, and you and I have been texting back and forth. Republicans didn't do what they did last time. Last time Trump said don't early vote, and so they didn't. Republicans do have an advantage in early vote numbers. When the early vote come in, it's going to look a little bit different than 2020, and that's scary.
Now, the campaign has been eager to share numbers when they feel good about them. For instance, they said that women have made up 55% of early voters across the battleground states, but on other metrics that we know they're measuring, like early turnout among Latino voters, black voters, young voters, we are not getting any numbers from them. And that could swing the outcome, especially in cities like Philadelphia, where Democrat turnout is going to make the difference in whether or not Harris wins this state. Neil.
Jackie, thank you very much. There are a lot of key backers to both candidates right now. Tim Scott of South Carolina, a big one for Donald Trump, probably his most aggressive surrogate if you take J.D. Vance out of that equation. But it was a position for which Tim Scott himself was being considered, but he has been the loyal soldier. And I caught up with him a few minutes ago because he says he likes what he is hearing and seeing. Take a look.
I spent the last several days on the campaign trail in the battleground states. I've been in Michigan, Ohio, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Nevada. And I will say the momentum is on our side. Here's why. Kamala Harris, she broke it. Donald Trump, he can fix it. Keeping it that simple distills the entire race down to why I believe Donald Trump will be the next president of these United States, and why the American people are so excited to turn out in record numbers supporting Donald Trump.
Do you get any sense of where some of those record number of voters are going? We hear disproportionately in some states. I don't know how it's been in South Carolina, but that turnout in Republican areas has been quite strong. And that worried even Jim Messina, the former Obama campaign manager, who doesn't like the sound of that. What do you make of it?
Well, there's a couple things that I think are very telling. Neil, you hit as usual, you hit the nail on the head. One of the places where we're seeing the strongest Republican turnout is among low propensity voters. Across the battleground states, there's been a very strong campaign to make sure that the low propensity Republican voters turn out in this election. The good news is they've been turning out early. Why is that such good news? Because over the last 2 election cycles, we've seen a low participation among Republicans in early voting. This cycle, we're seeing records being broken. Another classic example of good news, Eric Hovde is doing very well in Wisconsin. Better news in Wisconsin is that 2 out of 3 Wisconsins want to actually vote in person. Wisconsinites are committed to voting in person this cycle. I believe that favors the Republican Party. It favors Donald Trump, and it favors Eric Hovde, our Senate candidate in Wisconsin.
You know, Donald Trump, in a number of his appearances, Senator, has sort of telegraphed some election problems and shenanigans. He's mentioned that kind of thing going on in Pennsylvania, a couple of other states, watching Georgia closely. I know each side has their lots of legal teams watching things very, very closely. But do you think that Donald Trump was preparing for the possibility that if he loses, that's why?
I think he's just washing away all uncertainty. Here's a classic example. In Pennsylvania, I was there this past Thursday. We've seen Donald Trump with the Supreme Court and courts in Pennsylvania win case after case around voting integrity. That only reinforces a fair election process. We've seen a 400,000 vote shift in Pennsylvania towards Republicans. I think he's very confident that he's going to win in Pennsylvania, but he wanted to eliminate any possibilities of shenanigans, so to speak. He had very early lawsuits. They've turned out in our side to our advantage, and that's good news for the voters. It's good news for election integrity.
All right, now you know him far better than I do, Senator. So if he were to lose way too early, and this race is a dead heat, as you said earlier, do you think he will accept that? Not even a subject. I'm
going to tell you, yeah. Exactly. You know where I'm going with this deal. There's no doubt that Donald Trump is going to focus on one thing, and that's winning. I've been with him several times, dozens and dozens of times. The one thing he does not have is a negative thought about his performance and this election outcome. He is very confident and takes no time to think about what ifs, unless they're what ifs he wins 40 states instead of 38 states. What if he does super
but do you yourself think, Senator, do you yourself think, I hear where you're coming from, but do you yourself think that if unthinkable happens, that he would accept that?
Yeah, I think he said it several times. He is expecting a fair election, and a fair election, he actually accepts the results, and of course, that means he wins.
So, Senator, Nikki Haley has a column out today in the Wall Street Journal saying that the choice is clear.
Yeah,
she goes on to write that Trump isn't perfect, but he is the better choice. Yet Donald Trump has never gone out on the stump with her as he has many, many, many times with you. What do you think of that? Some say whatever you think of Nikki Haley was a mistake. What do you think?
Well, listen, Nikki Haley was a fantastic governor for South Carolina. I think she did a good job as our UN ambassador. Having her writing a column on behalf of Donald Trump is a very good sign that this big tent party has one single focus. It's beating Kamala Harris and re-electing Donald Trump. As I said at the beginning, she broke it, Kamala Harris. He could fix it, Donald Trump. And Nikki Haley being on that team is a very good thing.
Would you have any role you'd be interested in? You've done Donald Trump a huge favor. Your influence with a lot of voters was widespread in a Trump administration, a cabinet position.
You know, I think I best serve South Carolina and the rest of the country by being the chairman of the banking committee. I'm excited about the opportunity to hold the SEC and the OCC and the CFPB, all acronyms for banking specific agencies. I get excited about holding those folks accountable and writing legislation that actually improves the flow of cash in our marketplace. We have too many Americans struggling paycheck to paycheck. And as one who used to have that unfortunate burden as a kid, I want to make sure that fewer kids have that burden. I'm going to spend my time and my focus making this country have the greatest economic recovery in the history of the world.
I have a great respect for Senator Tim Scott, and his opinions of President Trump are very valid, and I appreciate him making them plain and honestly, like he does.
Trump wrapping things up in Reading, Pennsylvania. Pretty soon in Allentown, we're going to hear from Kamala Harris as the race and the work at overtime goes into overdrive after this.
Wait a minute, okay.
Strategists like us. When you want to invest with more confidence, the answer is JP
Ready?
Morgan Wealth Management.
Think about all they've done to Donald Trump. First it was hoaxes, witch hunts, and impeachments. Then it was FBI raids, courtrooms, and mug shots. Finally, it was bullets in a Pennsylvania field. And after all that, this man stood up, with blood draining down his face, pumped his fists in the air, and told us to fight. Fight. Fight.
America's future will be bigger, better, bolder, brighter, happier, stronger, freer, greater, and more united than ever before. And we will make America great again.
You know what they think of us.
The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters.
So if Donald Trump can get through all of that, we can get out to vote. Building America's Future is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Hi, I'm Jay Jackson. For almost 20 years, Abacus Life has been purchasing life insurance policies from seniors. And in just seconds, you can use the free calculator at Abacus.
That was good.
Deficit will be overcome by a more energized base and perhaps new Trump voters.
We're at the 2-yard line, maybe the 1-yard line.
Former President Trump's final push for Pennsylvania kicked off with what?
Wanted to read this.
Oh, I'm recording.
To become his campaign's keystone question.
Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago?
Trump is hopeful that question resonates with a majority of undecided Americans, including voters and groups that he has made inroads with that have historically sided with Democrats. We spoke with former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo here in Reading.
I think you just need to look over my shoulder and you can see people from every walk of life. It's about common sense and taking our country back.
He represents that American dream that so many Latinos come to this country for.
According to UCLA data, there are nearly 580,000 Latino voters in Pennsylvania. The Commonwealth is also home to 749,000 union workers, according to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. Trump has touted rank-and-file support and Republican mail-in voting turnout. Despite encouraging his supporters to take part, the former president has been critical of Pennsylvania's on-demand mail-in voting process, which allows voters to apply for and submit their mail-in ballot in person. He said this in Lancaster County last night.
They're talking about extending hours and stuff. Who ever heard of this stuff? We should have one-day voting and paper ballots.
According to the Associated Press, the Trump campaign may not wait for news outlets to call the race. Senior advisor Jason Miller saying only that Trump, quote, will declare victory when we're confident we have 270 electoral votes that we need. Now, in 2020, Pennsylvania's vote took 4 days. There were 2.6 million mail-in ballots then. 1.8 million have so far been received. Brett.
Tonight to tell us where things stand on a number of fronts. Good evening, David.
Brett, good evening to you. Really is a number of fronts. Pennsylvania continues to see a flood of pre-election lawsuits play out. One of 6 states that do not allow early ballots to be counted or even opened before Election Day. Officials there and in other states say a delay in counting doesn't mean anything nefarious is taking place, and they're stressing patience as the process plays out in the coming days. Thousands of voters in Cobb County, Georgia, and Atlanta who were mailed their ballots late were told today to vote in person or get their ballots into county elections officials by tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern when polls close. Previously, they were given an extension. To Arizona now, where the Secretary of State appeared to miss a deadline today to identify some 98,000 names of people to double-check they are eligible to vote. In September, state officials announced a data coding issue in the driver's license database. A judge in Pennsylvania ruled a couple of hours ago that Elon Musk may continue his $1 million giveaway to individuals who signed a pledge supporting the First and Second Amendments. Philadelphia's district attorney on the left there, Larry Krasner, said it was an illegal lottery Musk's attorneys argued it amounted to free speech. And from the courts to the FBI Election Command Center, we took a tour inside this nerve center where about 80 people all week will be combating any election-related security threats, including cyber hacks, attacks, and posts on social media.
We are not looking to curtail free speech. We are not looking to monitor social media. However, when information is threatening and it rises to a violation of federal laws, then we look to take action.
And overseas, the FBI continues to have a close watch on cyber threats from Russia, Iran, and China, not just for this election, but in the months and weeks ahead. Brett?
David Spotty in Washington. David, thanks. Here's some other headlines today. An Israeli court has loosened a gag order on a case investigating leaks of classified information suspected to involve one of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's media advisors. Critics say the leaks were aimed at giving Netanyahu political cover as Gaza ceasefire talks ground to a halt. The Prime Minister has denied any wrongdoing. He has downplayed the affair and publicly called for the gag order to be lifted. Striking workers at Boeing here in the U.S. voting on the latest contract offer. It includes a 38% wage increase spread over 4 years. It is the company's fourth proposal since the walkout began September 13th. Speaking of walkouts, New York Times election coverage could be impacted by a strike today. Hundreds of tech staffers walked out today, the day before the election. Those workers are in charge of back-end systems that power the paper's extensive digital operations. Stocks were down today ahead of Election Day. The Dow fell to 58. The S&P 500 was off 16. The Nasdaq lost 60. As we go to break, music icon Quincy Jones has died. He was a writer, producer, and collaborator with artists such as Frank Sinatra, Ray Charles, and Michael Jackson. Jones's publicist says he died Sunday night at his home in California, surrounded by his family. Quincy Jones was 91. Says that Republicans are poised to flip the U.S. Senate with at least 51 seats, with 4 toss-up races. The House is also up for grabs. The Republican